All right, y'all have a seat. Good evening. Man, I like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is slammed right in here, and that is awesome. Hey, I am super duper excited that you are here tonight. Hello. Right? Hey, I thank these guys. Give it up for Daniel and Jordan again. Right? Hey, first night of rocking out some worship, man. If you can play an instrument, I just want to put this plug out there. If you can play an instrument, man, if you can play the drums, guitar, any kind of stuff like that, man, we would love to have you killing it up here in the band. So if you can do any of those things and you are interested in using that talent that God's given you, you can talk to Daniel, you can talk to Jordan, you can talk to Miss Shanna, you can talk to any of us, grab us and just tell us, hey, listen, I play that stuff, would love to start practicing. All right, cool? Is that cool with everybody? This means yes in Kentucky. Come on with me. Here we go. Hey, cool. Hey, I just want to tell you guys how excited I am about tonight. I know you've been probably looking forward to this week since we've started this series so far, Love Exposed Week 3. We've talked about love, we've talked about dating, and tonight we are talking about sex, right? So we're talking about that tonight, just so you know. Hey, let me tell you a quick story. Excuse me. Let me tell you a quick story real quick. I have a buddy of mine. His name is Kevin. He told me this story one time, and he said this. He said, man, it's how you see things is how your life works, right? So he was in the mall one time when he was a junior in high school. All right, where are my juniors at in high school, right? 11th graders, repping 11th grade. Cool. So he was in 11th grade. He was at the mall with a buddy of his, okay? And they saw this beautiful bombshell from behind, right? I'm talking about long blonde hair, and she was blessed and highly favored by Jesus, if you know what I mean, okay? So he was like, with his buddy, he was like, listen, dude, you got to go talk to that girl. Man, you have got to go say something to her. Ask her out, man. You know, you got to, come on, spit some game, you know what I'm saying? If they told that like 30 years ago, I don't even know, right? But he walks up to this girl, and he says, hey, girl. And what happens next is pretty funny because he turns around, and it's a dude. All right? So it is a dude with a beard, long blonde hair, and a nice butt. So he was very, very confused, and the dude said, hey, big fella. All right, and he was just like, whoa. So like, needless to say, Kevin has told that story, and man, he's like, listen, things ain't always what they seem when you see them, right? And so, hey, tonight we are talking about this thing that we've talked about and that you think about. And just so you know, psychologists and scientists say that the male species, where are my dudes in here? Let me hear you say, oh. That's pretty weak, but that's cool. There's some of you guys in here. Okay, the male species, just so you know, thinks about this topic every 7 seconds. So 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. See, you didn't even make it that far. Okay? All right, 7 seconds is what it says, according to scientists and psychologists. And so tonight we are talking about sex. Yes, sex, reproduction. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And so I want you guys to understand that we are not going to stand up here and I'm not going to give you a graphic view of sex. I am not going to talk to you in a way that is going to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to tell you what Scripture has to say. And I'm going to give you the lowdown on what Jesus has to say about all this stuff. And so tonight we're talking about that. And we're going to talk about many different ways, just like Kevin Moore saw this girl/man, right, that he said, hey, big fella, right, when the guy turned around, right? What he saw was not really what happened, right? So you, as a student in middle school or high school, you are in a position where there are lots of different ways that you can see sex. And I'm not meaning see as in you can watch it on the internet or on a computer or in a movie. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that you perceive sex. Everybody say perceive. Perceive, okay? The way that you actually, how you think about it, the way that you view it, the way that you perceive it to be in your mind. And so just so you know, for the rest of tonight, anytime I say see, I'm meaning perceive pretty much. So everybody say perceive. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you and a lot of other people, how we can see sex, how we can perceive sex. And so one of the biggest ways, the first way that we see sex in our mind, or we perceive or visualize sex is this, is that sex, number one, is a God, right? A lot of people see that, right? Little g God, okay? And so I'm not saying that there's this huge 9-foot tall statue that spells out sex that's on your dresser at home, that's shiny and gold, and like you get up in the morning and you got your PJs on, right? And you're yawning, you're stretching, and like there's this golden image of the word sex right on your nightstand. I'm not saying that, right? I'm not meaning that. Hopefully I'm not saying like that you begin to worship it and sing songs to it like a god, right? I hope you don't say, "Oh, sex, I love you. Oh, how much I worship you. I think about you every day, and when I have you, I'll say yay." I'm not saying that, okay? I know that's funny. I hope that's not what happens, okay? I don't think that's what happens. I hope that's not what happens, okay? I know you're laughing. I know it's funny. But people perceive this sex, this thing, as a god, little g, okay? Listen up. I know it's funny. I know. Listen, they perceive it as a god, little g, okay? And so here's the deal. They put this thing called sex in a position of a godlike status. And so just so you know, just for definition, we're going to talk about a god, little g, / idol. And just for you guys to know, a god / idol, just the definition will be what you give your time to, what you give your mind to, and it's what you give your money to. Okay? So what you give your time, what you spend your time thinking about, what you actually spend money on, all that is considered pretty much a god. And so when we think about this idol of sex where we glorify this thing, right? Here's the deal. You can look around our entire country, and it's the exact same way. The exact same way. And so here's the deal. The state of the United States, when we think about sex, if you look around, that is what we spend our time on. That is what we spend our thoughts on and our treasure on. And just to kind of tell you what's going on, do you realize that in America, the average age of a sexual encounter is by the age of 16? Some of you are like, yeah, cool, I'm like 15 and a half. I'll be there in like half a year. But to me, it really breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because of this. The average, like I said, occurs at age 16. But here's the unfortunate part, and it is so unfortunate because statistics say this. They say a girl that is involved with sexual encounters before 16 or at 16 is more than 50% more likely to become suicidal, to become an alcoholic, to become depressed, and to become anorexic. Welcome to the world of putting sex as your god. Whenever you get involved with this in the wrong place, when you think that you're going to get a certain something, you really wind up being void. You really wind up wondering what's going on, and it really gives you other things. And so when it comes to this idea of money, like we talked about, a god / idol is something you spend your time on, something you spend your money on. Like I said, in America, but not just in America, all over the world, this has become a god. Just so you know, pornography is a $60 billion a year industry worldwide. Everybody say 60 billion. 60 billion. That is a lot of flipping money. All right, $60 billion. Listen up. That's a lot of money. Not only is that a troubled thing, 60 billion worldwide, it is a $12 billion industry in America. Just so you know, that is more than Major League Baseball. That is more than the NBA. That is more than the NHL and more than the NFL make in a year combined. Combined. All of those. Professional sports. There's more money spent on porn than there is on all professional sports. There's more money spent on pornography than what the United States spends on foreign aid. You know what foreign aid is? Foreign aid is where America spends money to feed countries that don't have enough food. There's pornography is more spent on that than there is for foreign aid, U.S. foreign aid. So like we said, by definition, if you look at it, this is a God in our life, in our country. And so that is a crazy thing to think about. Not only that, we talked about time. We talked about money, the way we think. It makes me sick to think about this. There's over 200 movies, pornographic movies made a day. By definition, that's a God. And this is a crazy fact to me. I was researching this and saw this, and I was like, are you kidding me? 90% of guys ages 8 through 18 have looked at pornography on the internet. Like I said, by definition, we view sex as a god, little g. And so here's the deal. I'm not even talking about adultery, all right? I'm not even talking about those people that go out and they cheat on their husband or their wife just to get this idol, this god of sex, right? I'm not talking about, I'm not even mentioning homosexuality. I'm not even mentioning regular sexuality. I'm simply talking about pornography. $60 billion a year worldwide and $12 billion a year in the U.S. By definition, a god, an idol, is something we spend our time on, what we think about, and what we spend our money towards, what we put our money towards. And so if you think about that, in America, we have a very big problem. And we want to elevate this thing that God has created. We want to elevate it to a status that is not what God intended, right? We want to do this outside of where God intended it for, and it becomes a god. And so just so you guys know, this is nothing new. This is nothing new, and there's a guy by the name of Paul who wrote about this way back in the day, a few years after Jesus ascended to heaven, right? In Romans chapter 1, verse 24, it says this, "So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their heart desired. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things God created instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise." So the deal is this, God. This verse really defines where we are as a country. It defines where we really are in our own life. And I don't know you that well. You know, I don't know where you've been. I don't know what is on your phone. I don't know what's on your computer. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what's going on. But I almost guarantee, my guess is this verse defines people of all ages, boy and girl, in this. I just want to just make you think about the way that we perceive sex. And number one, we perceive it as a god. And so because of these cravings that we naturally have, we're so curious about everything. We're curious about things. We start to spend our time on this thing. We start to spend, our money on it. And we cross over this line to where we elevate it to a godlike status. And that's a very, very, very dangerous place to be. So number one, we can perceive sex as a god. Number two, you can perceive sex as gross. Okay, when it comes to seeing sex as gross, there's two different camps, right? There's one camp over here that is like the super uber religious, ultra religious, where they think that the Bible, when they read about flesh and about sexuality, they think that, hey, Jesus came to kill the flesh and we were to die to the flesh. And so sex is fleshly. And so anything that has to deal with sexuality in any way, shape, or form is gross, is nasty, right? That's just one camp over here, right? And so these people would say, guys, where my guys at? Say, yeah. Are y'all here? Right? I don't know. Am I the only guy? Guys, let me hear you say, yeah. All right, guys, this is what this group would probably say to you. They'd say, guys, hey, listen, if you've ever thought about a girl in a physical way, congratulations, you're going to burn in hell. That's pretty much what this group would say, okay? And then ladies, hey, ladies, if you've ever thought about your wedding day in any way, shape, or form, congratulations, you're going to burn in hell. That's what a lot of these people see sex as. Just stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. Hey, by the way, I'm giving a plug for this weekend. If you are here tonight, I would love to see you here this weekend on Sunday. Listen to Pastor Chad preach the word, because this week is going to be off the charts. So be here this Sunday. Okay, cool? Capiche? Sorry, just had to plug that in there. And so the deal is this. These extremists say that, hey, God is good, the devil is bad, but sex is even worse than the devil, right? That's what a lot of these people in this side of the camp say. And so these ultra-religious people view sex as gross and not as a beautiful, God-given thing that it is, or God-like. It's very dirty to these people. And so here's the deal. There are people that when they perceive sex, they say, it's gross. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. And whatever you do, just don't do it. Ever. Even when you're married. Right? So that's the one side of the extreme of seeing sex as gross. And so here's the deal. There is another side and that views sex as gross. And this is the side that anytime they think about physical touch or hugging or intimacy or anything like that they think it is gross because of something that happened to them when they were a child. Something that may have happened to them when they were younger. And God only knows that stuff shouldn't have happened to them. And so anytime they think about this thing called sex, they think of it as gross. And so there's two different camps there. And so, but I want to challenge you that we can perceive sex as gross. And so number one, we can see sex as a God, little g. We can see sex as too gross. But is there a way, can we actually perceive sex in a different way? Let me challenge you. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Here's the deal. Jeremiah 2:13. It says this, "For my people have done two evil things. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and they have dug for themselves cracked cisterns that can hold no water at all." And so just to give you a recap, people who lived here in Jeremiah's timing, right? They were thirsty inside. They were thirsty for the things of God. They were thirsty for eternity. They were thirsty for actual spirituality, right? They were thirsty to be more like God. But in the end, they went and dug their own wells. They went and dug their wells that looked pretty on the outside. Maybe they looked good. They looked really nice. But guess what? They were broken. They were broken and they leaked and they never held water. And so in a physical stance, how we could think about this physically is, hey, you know what? You're in a position where you say, hey, I need some water. I need a lot of water, right? I need water. My tongue is like swelled up. I need some water. You know what I'm saying? H2O, water boy, water, all right? So you're like, hey, I need all this water. But yet, here's the deal. There's this beautiful well already dug for you. You know what I'm saying? There's this beautiful well that's already dug for people. And you know what? It's good, clean, drinkable water. But guess what we do? Guess what you do? Instead of drinking that clean water and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to go drink my own water. I'm going to go dig my own well, my own cistern to hold my water. You know why? Because I want to do it my way. And they dig this well, doesn't have any water in it, right? They dig this well and they continually go away from the good, crystal clear, refreshing water. And they go and dip into their own well to drink their own way. And so the problem with this is this. When that happens, there are people in the world today, just like you, just like me, that are thirsty for things in their life. But yet we want to dig our own well. We want to do our own thing apart from what God wants us to do. We want to do our own deal. And so here's the thing about it. God says that's not how it should be. And this is the same exact thing of how it happens sexually. We get to this stage that you guys and you gals are in right now. And you get to this stage, and here's the crazy thing about it. You're curious, you're wondering, well, what about this? What about that? What about her? What about him? All these different thoughts, you're very curious. And Being curious in itself is not bad, just being curious. But here's the deal. God has this beautiful well of sexuality here. He has this beautiful well, but instead of drinking life and drinking and living life like God says to live it sexually, we want to dig our own well. We want to do our own thing. Instead of waiting to see on our wedding day, and instead of waiting for you to see on your wedding day, you decide to look at the internet now. You know what? I'm going to touch now because I'm thirsty. I think about this and how it runs through your head. I'm not going to drink the way that God wants me to drink, this well, this beautiful well of creation that God has given. I'm not going to drink the way He wants me to. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do it when I want to do it. I'm going to look at porn. I'm going to do things with my girlfriend. I'm going to let my boyfriend do things to me because I'm thirsty for something. And yet we're trying to satisfy that with everything else other than this perfect well that God has made. And so here's the deal. Man, you dive into this well of your own self thinking that, hey, I'm going to satisfy my own self. I'm going to do what I want to do, when in fact, it absolutely leaves you devastated. And so when it comes to sexuality, God has this giant pool here, a way that it's supposed to be experienced. But so many times we want to do it our own way. And so here's the deal. Sex is not a God to be worshipped. Sex is not gross. It's not unbelievably horrible. Number 3, the last thing is this. I'm wrapping it up. You guys just hang with me. Sex is a gift. So it's not a God to be worshipped. It's not gross. Sex is actually a gift. It's a gift that God has placed in your life to be opened up on a certain day. It's a gift that when God made Adam and Eve back in the day, you know, He forms Adam, and Adam is in the garden, and guess what? He's buck naked, all right? And He formed Eve, and she's buck naked, okay? And so I want you to understand that God was up there, and He said, you know what? Hey, Adam, Eve, Adam, your husband and wife, hello, goodbye, see ya. All right? And so God was not up there, and He was not saying, what? No. What are you doing? What are you doing? I didn't intend for that. OMG. Don't do that. Put that away. No, that's not what God was saying, right? He wasn't doing that. Here's the deal. God intended sex to be a gift. I'm just telling you. God He has planned this thing as a gift. So here's what I want you to stay with me. I know it's crazy. I know we're talking about a lot of crazy things. But here's the deal. Sex is not a God. Sex is not gross, but sex is a gift from our Creator. And so look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. It says, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother. What reason are you talking about, Dustin? What reason are you saying? It's the reason that we crave sexuality, the reason that we crave emotional and physical needs. For this reason, for that reason right there, a man will leave his father and his mother and will be joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. And so in the very beginning of the Bible, God said sexuality is supposed to be lived this way. A man is going to grow up. And notice I said a man, not a boy, right? I said a man. A man will leave his father and mother, not a boy. A man is someone who loves Jesus, has a job, gets married, all right? Maybe not the married part, but hey, you know what I'm with, right? Love Jesus, gets a job. That's a man, right? A man shall leave his mom and dad and be united to who? Everybody say his wife. Right? Be united to his wife. And it doesn't say that a man will leave his mom and his dad and cling to his husband, or she will leave her mom and dad and cling to her wife. It doesn't say that, right? And so here's the deal. Homosexuality is completely outside of the normal gift of God, sexually. And so here's the deal. It doesn't say a man shall leave his mother and his father and cling to his friends with benefits or girlfriend or boyfriend. It says his wife. Ring on the finger, money in the bank, baby, I'm going to work, I love you, wife. All right? That's what it says. It says a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined to his wife. It doesn't say anything about wives or mistresses or anything like that. And so adultery is completely out of this sanctified thing that God has created. And so here's if you don't get anything else out of tonight, this is exactly what I want you to hear. Anything outside the bond of marriage with a man and a woman is outside of the gift of sexuality that God has designed. Let me say it again. I'm going to say it one more time. Anything outside the bond of marriage with a man and a woman is outside of the gift of sexuality that God has designed. Because, guys, if you view sex as a god, you are worshiping the created thing instead of the creator. If you view it as gross, you're going to miss out on this amazing gift that God has given for a certain time and a certain place in marriage. And so my last thing, of course, is I'm just going to recap, is God has created this gift to be opened within marriage between a man and a woman. And so the choice is yours. The world's going to tell you everything else. Every commercial that you see out there, a ton of TV shows, all this kind of stuff are going to tell you a lot of other things other than what we talked about. And so my challenge for you is, what's your choice? Because, you know, there are all consequences to our actions. All of them. Yes, there's forgiveness, but yes, there are consequences for our actions. And so I want you to think about, hey, how are you perceiving sex? Has it become this godlike thing to you? Is it considered gross? Or is it a gift that is God has created for you to wait until you're married to be able to share that with your husband and your wife? And so my challenge for you is to think about that. I got a quick video I want you to watch. Check this out.
She's like, I don't want to, but it's just too tempting. So she keeps opening up the present just to find that it's empty. And then she starts to get confused. She keeps getting rejected by all these dudes. They tell her on a scale of 10, she's a 2. But that ain't true. If she only knew that Jesus, he loves and accepts us. Even when you don't want him, he'll never reject us. He heals us from that sin that totally infects us. And he does what condoms can't. He emotionally protects us. And I know some of you hear this, you're going to want to indict me. But we got to think rightly, so I'll ask politely. Can you really say this isn't even true, just slightly? I mean, we touched the forbidden fruit, not to realize it's poison ivy, and now we're numb and we're itching, and we got a distorted psyche. You don't think you just do it, like your name was Nike, not realizing that the consequences of your actions are oh so pricey. So this last story, though, is for those who think they're too dirty. This last story is for those who think they're unworthy. Read John chapter 8, the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders throw her naked in the temple while she yells, "Don't murder me." They say, Jesus, the law commands us to stone this woman. And you hear the hate in their tone. Jesus pauses it and says, whoever's without sin, you can cast the first stone. I mean, can you imagine the sound? Silence all around. You hear footsteps walk away. You hear stones hit the ground. And then Jesus kneels down. The woman thought it was her demise. He lifts up her face. You see the grace in his eyes. He says, I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more. I love you. I accept you. Mercy is yours. But if you're anything like me, you're like, no, that can't be. Why would he ever die for me? See, but then I saw that scene where I was redeemed. He reached out and touched me and said, Jeff, you're free. Instantly, I was wearing the brightest robe I'd ever seen. I was perfectly spotless. I was perfectly clean. So bright, in fact, man, I thought I'd go blind. I said, whose is this? He said, actually, it's mine. So think twice before you eat what society feeds us. Come follow the King. His name is Jesus. Do or not. Sorry I digressed, though. Let's get back to the topic. How there's some dudes who pressure her even when she says stop it. You're not a man. You're just a boy that can shave and you put on a good cover. Because if you don't respect her when she says no, you certainly don't love her. So how about you start studying her heart, stop studying her booty, or maybe invest the same amount of time in her that you do in Call of Duty. Because what makes you think you can get this girl and all of a sudden get naughty? Because you should have to touch her heart and her mind first before you ever touch her body. Because she longs to be accepted, she longs to be loved, so she gives herself up to another guy's lust. She thinks it feels good at first, but then she gets bitter. Because the promise of satisfaction, it never delivers. She's like, I don't want to, but it's just too tempting. So she keeps opening up the present just to find that it's empty. And then she starts to get confused. She keeps getting rejected by all these dudes. They tell her on a scale of 10, she's a 2. But that ain't true. If she only knew that Jesus, he loves and accepts us. Even when you don't want him, he'll never reject us. He heals us from that sin that totally infects us. And he does what condoms can't. He emotionally protects us. And I know some of you hear this, you're going to want to indict me. But we got to think rightly, so I'll ask politely. Can you really say this isn't even true? Just slightly? I mean, we touched the forbidden fruit, got to realize it's poison ivy, and now we're numb and we're itching, and we got a distorted psyche. You don't think you just do it, like your name was Nike, not realizing that the consequences of your actions are oh so pricey. So this last story, though, is for those who think they're too dirty. This last story is for those who think they're unworthy. Read John chapter 8, the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders throw her naked in the temple while she yells, "Don't murder me." They say, Jesus, the law commands us to stone this woman. And you hear the hate in their tone. Jesus pauses it and says, whoever's without sin, you can cast the first stone. I mean, can you imagine the sound? Silence all around. You hear footsteps walk away, you hear stones hit the ground. And then Jesus kneels down. The woman thought it was her demise. He lifts up her face. You see the grace in his eyes. He says, I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more. I love you. I accept you. Mercy is yours. But if you're anything like me, you're like, no, that can't be. Why would he ever die for me? See, but then I saw that scene where I was redeemed. He reached out and touched me and said, Jeff, you're free. Instantly, I was wearing the brightest robe I'd ever seen. I was perfectly spotless. I was perfectly clean. So bright, in fact, man, I thought I'd go blind. I said, whose is this? He said, actually, it's mine. So think twice before you eat what society feeds us. Come follow the King. His name is Jesus.